Well, hey, Connect Groups, welcome back for another week of group time and discussion about the message from Sunday. I do pray that the series that we've been in has been a blessing to you. I know we've received a lot of positive feedback, which always encourages my heart because I know as a church we're wrestling with these truths that can change our lives. And so I pray that not only are you wrestling with the truths, but that you're applying them to your life because that's really where life change takes place. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to take a moment, recap this past Sunday's message, and then give you plenty of time to discuss it as a group. So here's something that unites all of us, is that we have fear. It really is something that's unavoidable because it's an emotion of our lives. Different things happen, and it raises up fear inside of us. But we also can recognize that fear doesn't impact us equally. Two different people can have a very similar experience and respond to fear in completely different ways, where one person can be crippled by it, the other person can have that same experience and just take it in stride. And what it is we have a different history, we have a different perspective on life, and so there are so many things that play into how we view and therefore respond to fear. So this past Sunday, we were just looking at fear on a practical level. We were looking at the idea that there's healthy fear, there's unhealthy fear, there's control when it comes to fear, that it is something that can actually dictate how we think, how we feel, how we operate in our lives. And the amount of fear and the amount of control go hand in hand. They're proportional to each other. And so whatever or whoever we fear the most really does become God of our lives. And so as we looked at this principle and we were looking at how it controls our life, then we went to Scripture to see how is it that God has given us that we can overcome the unhealthy, controlling fear in our life. Because here's just something that's practical. If God's calling us to live a certain way, but yet fear is keeping us from walking down that pathway, obviously it's not God's plan for our life. So what did God give us to overcome fear? Fear. God literally in Scripture says that we need to fear Him. And the reason why sometimes that's hard for us to hear is we still attach to all fear a negative connotation. So when we hear fear God, we automatically start to apply to Him human perspectives, earthly perspectives, where it sounds like God is going to be a bully, that God's going to be oppressive, and that He's using His power to control us in a negative way. But when we strip all of that away and we just start looking at the truths of how God responded to His people in history, how He continues to respond, what we actually see is a very beautiful picture of what it means to fear God in a healthy sense. And what we looked at is God is a God of power, and we can never minimize that. And we should respect that and have a very sober response to that. But God, in His power, delivers us because He wants to be in relationship. As He's in relationship, He gives us clear direction for life. And then how we respond to that direction determines if God will bless us or discipline or curse us, as Scripture says. And when we start to get a beautiful and accurate picture of God, and we start to experience that in our lives, then we want to make choices to never violate that relationship. And that really is what healthy fear of God is we want all of it. We want God's power, we want His blessing, we want His direction, we want His correction, we want all of that. And so we will make choices to allow us to walk in that relationship, which will become the most powerful force in our life. And again, whatever or whoever we fear the most becomes God in our life. So when we fear God the most, He truly is God, and it helps us overcome the other fears that rise up in our lives. And the reason this is so important is because God is calling us to do things that we would not do naturally. It requires knowing Him and requires steps of faith. And so even as we look at all the characters in Scripture, what we see is that they were willing to do these incredible feats of faith because they truly had a fear of God. Whether that's Abraham initially, or Gideon, or Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Daniel, or Peter in the New Testament, Paul, or Jesus Himself as He was wrestling in the garden, all of them had such a respect of God that it allowed them to overcome fears, allowed them to overcome any type of stresses that were coming against them. So I pray that you understand this principle, that you discuss it, that you see how you need to change, what you need to change in your life, and then I pray that you apply that to your life. Guys, I'm so proud of you, and I can't wait to see you this Sunday.